Hi everyone, welcome back to Asian Movie Recaps. Today we will recap another intriguing movie. In the meantime, please like and subscribe to our channel. That way, we can continue to provide you with plot twists and interesting stories in our movie summaries. It may only take a few seconds, but it allows us to upload our daily video as soon as possible. Let's start. When a former detective gets a call from his ex-wife that his teenage daughter is missing, he begins an investigation into her disappearance. His search leads him to step by step into the horrific underworld of his perfect high school daughter's secret life. This movie begins with the death of three characters: a store clerk, a photography student, and a nearby resident. All dead from knife wounds. 5 days after the murders, the investigation is ongoing, but unfortunately, the police have found no leads. A former detective lieutenant, Mr. Fujishima, was a man who had it all till he had a violent reaction to his wife's unfaithfulness. His daughter, Kanoko, and home were taken from him by his ex-wife, Kiriko. On medication for schizophrenia and manic depression, he lost his job, family, and everything. Now a dysfunctional man and an unstable alcoholic, Detective Ose goes to Fujishima and hands him some pictures when he is questioned about the murders. Fujishima gets a phone call from his ex-wife not long after. Kiriko informs him that Kanoko has been gone for a few days and she hasn't been able to reach her. She's worried she might be missing. He goes to the home of Kiriko and Kanoko. Fujishima checks his daughter's room, and in doing so he finds a small container with some powdery substance and an injection syringe. He finds expensive dresses in her closet, and a prescription from a neurology center also. After asking her mother some questions to aid in the search for Kanoko and finding out that she knows next to nothing about their daughter, Kiriko breaks down. She decides to call the police, but Fukushima doesn't agree with her, saying Kanoko would get in trouble. Fujishima tries to reassure her and starts investigating the whereabouts of his daughter. He traces her current friends and tries asking questions about Kanoko. They try to evade the questions. He notices that one of them also seems to be into drug use. When he tries to press for more information about Kanoko and her whereabouts, they raise an alarm. Fujishima goes to the neurology center and is told by an old elderly man that he prescribed anti-anxiety pills and sleeping pills for her. Fujishima gets a call from Kiriko saying she got some information about Kanoko's friends from junior high school. They meet up with them and ask them the kind of person their daughter was. They all say she was the best girl, friendly to all and loved by everyone. Getting no valuable information from the chattering and giggling girls, he goes to meet her former teacher Azuma, who admits to noticing strange behaviors and symptoms in Kanoko. She frequently skipped school, her face was pale, she grew skinny, and started hanging out with the bad kids at school. Teacher Azuma apologized for not saying anything as she wasn't sure if Kanoko was actually on drugs. He calls Detective Ose, who gave him the pictures, and asks for the name of one of the boys in the pictures and is told it's Matsunaga. He concludes that Matsunaga was the one giving drugs to Kanoko and resolves to find him. Fujishima makes a move on his ex-wife whom he's been staying with that night, and she turns him down. He tries to force himself on her and it leads to a fight. She accuses him of not caring about his daughter. He succeeds in having his way with her. She decides to leave the house. Fujishima goes out in search of Matsunaga. He finds him in a vehicle with a lady, but he is immediately knocked out from behind. He awakens shortly in the back seat of the vehicle fitted in between two ladies. Just as Matsunaga asks who he is, they are attacked by a gang of boys and he blacks out. He wakes up once again in a pool of blood and dead bodies, and as he struggles to get to his feet, he is sighted by one of the attackers who kicks him in the head and knocks him out once again. When he regains consciousness for the third time, there are police officers around and is told that Matsunaga was being chased by his gang and the Ishimaru clan, his assailants, and he got caught in the crossfire. The police think there may be a connection between Matsunaga and the convenience store murders, as one of the three murder victims was a former member of the gang and knew Matsunaga. He is informed that Kiriko has left the house and he tries reaching her. Her father answers instead and accuses him of kidnapping Kanoko and threatens to involve the police. Fujishima goes in search of the two high school friends of Kanoko, Morishita and Nagono, hoping to speak to Nagono, whom he suspects uses drugs. He finds her other friend, Morishita, instead and rough handles her, trying to get information on the whereabouts of Nagono. She struggles and breaks out of his hold and tells him that it was Kanoko instead who sold drugs to Nagono and damaged her. She claims Kanoko tricked, threatened, and then pimped out Nagono. On Fujishima's way home that night, while drunk, he picks up a sex worker and takes her home, saying incomprehensible words to Kanoko. When asking for her pay, she's shot in the ear and a masked man attacks him, asking for an unknown thing supposedly in Kanoko's possession. Fukushima mistakes it for her drugs and tells him it's in her bag. He rejects it as it's not what he came for. He realizes that Fujishima has no idea what Kanoko has done, and Fukushima responds in the affirmative while calling his daughter names, pretending not to care about her so he can get the attacker off his back. The assailant shoots and kills the already injured woman and then puts the gun at Fujishima's head. He pulls the trigger but there's no bullet, having used it to kill the woman. He promises Fujishima that he'll make him watch Kanoko die and then come back to kill him. Fujishima denies having anything to do with Kanoko, and he doesn't even remember what she looks like, to which the assailant replies that Kanoko is the piece of trash that Fujishima brought into the world, and then gives Fujishima a hard kick to the head, rendering him unconscious. When Fujishima awakens, Morishita is waiting outside. She has a package for Fujishima from Nagono. It's a key to a locker. She claims it was given to Nagono by Kanoko and asks him to take responsibility for it as Kanoko's father. During a conversation, she tells Fujishima that Nagono has been afraid since the death of the former gang member that was among the 3 killed in the store. Nagono believes she's next and that his killer was probably Kanoko. She grumbled that Nagono idolized Kanoko even though she got her hooked on drugs and pimped her out. Even then, Nagono still adored her because she was too cool. Hearing this, Fujishima goes into a frenzy and demands to be taken to Nagono. They speedily drive and race up the stairs in search of Nagono. She runs ahead with Fujishima running behind. Fujishima hears Morishita's scream and rushes to her aid. To find a gory scene awaiting them, there's blood all over and dead bodies. He pushes her aside and dashes up to find Nagono but finds a worse scene instead. Nagono has been gruesomely murdered and is lying in a messy pool of blood. Flashbacks to 3 years ago show a boy named Saigon, Kanoko's middle school classmate, who falls hopelessly for her as she was the only person who didn't bully or ostracize him. Very much aware that Kanoko had been in love with a former student like him, wanted Kanoko to feel the same way for him. Koneko takes advantage of his affection and lures him to a party where he ends up being drugged. He stares awake to find himself on a bed after the party and tries to move and finds out that his hands are chained together behind his back. A man enters and begins to undress while Saigon struggles. His mouth is stuffed with a piece of cloth to muffle his struggle and groans. The covers are lifted and Saigon is naked from the bottom down. His shirt is ripped behind his back and the man takes a lick off his bare skin. His legs are shoved aside and the man pushes himself into his body, causing Saigon to groan loudly in pain, all while pictures are being taken. He is raped. Saigon is in the bathroom trying to wash up his bloody bottom and crying while his mother knocks at the door, trying to know what's wrong. He screams at her to shut up. He stands before his mirror in his room and rips up all the photographs of Kanoko he has on the wall with a knife. Saigon is hostile to his mother, struggling physically with her. He blames Kanoko for turning him into a different person. He points a knife at his mother to get her to leave him alone, and when she does, he runs out of the house into the rain. Saigon is still running in the rain while calling Kanoko's name when a vehicle blocks him off and he is thrown in. He's being beaten up and threatened that if he tells anyone what happened, the pictures will be spread everywhere. They make fun of him for the fact that he likes Kanoko. Saigon is told that Kanoko has a message for him. He is to keep his body clean, so he's always ready. He's given a new name, Alice, and is thrown off a bridge into a river before they drive off. Saigon has gotten out of the river and is sitting in an empty stall. He brings out a wrapped powdery substance from his pocket and swallows it. He starts coughing and then screams agonizingly. Standing before the mirror in the bathroom laughing hysterically to himself, he shows up at the house of the girl who delivered Kanoko's message and threatened him when he was abducted. She sees him and tries to walk away and he hits her head with the bat. He tortures her while asking for Kanoko's whereabouts. As she wriggles in pain, she tells him Kanoko's location. Meanwhile, Saigon finds Kanoko in a room and questions her. He tries to hit her with the bat but can't do it. Instead, Kanoko kills him. The police are at the scene of Nagono's death. Fujishima goes to the locker and sees an envelope. He takes it and goes back to his car. He opens the envelope and finds pictures of people being abused by a certain man. There's a photograph of Ogata, Kanoko's former boyfriend. A picture, in particular, shocks him. He screams in agony and rips it up in a fit. The detective receives a call from Fujishima and asks if Fujishima has stood him up after inviting him out. Fujishima asks him to check under the table and where he finds an envelope. The pictures inside show a man in a schoolgirl outfit. He seems to be well known as Captain Miura. The pictures capture him in the act of abusing several kids. Fujishima asks if Captain Miura ordered the murders. The detective asks what Fujishima means and Fujishima answers that in Nagano's call records, her last call was to the Omiya police. The detective feigns ignorance and berates Fujishima for taking evidence from the crime scene. Fujishima questions why Nagano called the police and was killed. He suspects the detective is up to something, to which he denies it, claiming he just wants a quiet resolution. Unknown to him, his call is being traced. The detective and several officers leave in search of Fujishima. Fujishima sees them and drives away, speedily managing to escape getting caught. At the Tsujimura Neurology Clinic, Captain Miura is at a sink when a knife is suddenly put at his neck. He is put in a chokehold by Fujishima. Captain Miura asks who Fujishima is and he responds by stabbing the wall next to his face with a picture of Captain Miura and Kanoko. Fujishima tortures Captain Miura and he admits that it was Kanoko who came onto him. He claims he turned her down, but a few days later he was approached by a man named Cho. He confirms the identity of the man when Fujishima shows him a photograph. Fujishima demands to be told who Kanoko is, what she said, and what she has done. Captain Miura just replies that she is Fujishima's daughter. Kanoko led him into a room with a bound and blindfolded young girl. Fujishima received a call from Kuriko telling him the police told her about Nagano's death and questioned her. She asked Fujishima if he knew Kanoko's whereabouts. The question reminds him of Captain Miura's answer to the very same question. Captain Miura answered that Kanoko is Fujishima. He says Kanoko told him that Fujishima assaulted her. This triggers a memory where Fujishima is violently kicking down Kanoko's bedroom door. He does this successfully and sees Kanoko sitting calmly in her bed. She asks him what he wants, and when he doesn't answer, she walks up to him and kisses his lips. He pushes her away in shock and she falls to her bed. He then walks up to her in anger and starts landing punches and slaps on her face. She weakly asks why, if it's because Fujishima loves her. She leans close and whispers in his ear that she loves him and starts laughing maniacally. Fujishima angrily puts his hands on her neck and starts to strangle her while screaming, "Die, die." He suddenly regains his senses and lets her go. Fujishima picks up a piece of the photograph he ripped earlier and it shows Kanoko posed for the picture and smiling on the same bed where Captain Miura abused the other kids. Fujishima is walking dejectedly in the rain when he is attacked by a group of people and beaten up. Fujishima sits on the floor battered and his mouth bloody. He asks where Kanoko is. He's beaten a few more times and is told to see it as punishment for Kanoko's wrongs. He asks what exactly she did. The henchman tells him that Kanoko was Mr. Cho's favorite, but she snuggled out photos she shouldn't have and distributed them to every perverted old client. He's told that Kanoko is out of control. Fujishima is told that his daughter broke the rules and she has to pay with her life. He pleads on her behalf and blames Matsunaga. He claims Matsunaga framed and roped Kanoko into it. He is told that is not the case and is pointed to a body bag that contains Matsunaga in a bloody state. Matsunaga admits to Fujishima that they killed Ogata. He was weak and had a cute face, so they abducted him and made him sleep with old men. That made him kill himself. Kanoko befriended him to get revenge for Ogata. Matsunaga talks about how amazing Kanoko is, saying he could do anything, anywhere as long as she's with him, even if she killed him. He taunts Fujishima and tries to get him angry enough to kill him and put him out of his misery, but Fujishima is stopped by Cho's men. Fujishima pleads with them to spare Kanoko's life, saying he wants to kill her himself. He's shown a picture of a man, Detective Aikawa, Cho's attack dog, and his family. He is told that he is an active cop. Cho had him backed against the wall and made him commit the murders, and he might also be gunning to kill Kanoko if he hadn't killed her yet. Fujishima was set loose on him and he goes to the Aikawa's home and forces himself on his wife. A call from her husband comes in and Fujishima answers it and bargains to make a trade for Kanoko with his wife and daughter. They meet up at the agreed location, but when Detective Aikawa arrives and goes to the car, Fujishima is nowhere to be found, just his wife strapped to the car seat and his little son unconscious in the back seat. Detective Aikawa shoots and kills his wife, and Fujishima runs him over with his car and then runs to the trunk of Detective Aikawa's car to check for Kanoko, but instead sees Mr. Cho's dead body. He gets into a fight with Detective Aikawa and finds out that Kanoko is still alive. The police come around to pick up Detective Aikawa. Detective Ose shoots and kills him and says it was a suicide. Fujishima escapes once again from the clutches of the police. Fujishima has a photograph with Kanoko's address on it and goes there in search of her. He enters the room and finds it empty. Fujishima goes back to see Kanoko's former teacher Azuma after figuring out that Kanoko pimped her daughter out too. He has reason to believe that she knows something about Kanoko's disappearance. Teacher Azuma admits to killing Kanoko. Fujishima holds her bondage until she can find Kanoko's body. When they can't find Kanoko's body due to the recent snow, Fujishima refuses to believe that Kanoko is dead. The movie ends as he promises to kill Kanoko himself and keeps digging. What do you think about this movie? Let us know what you think in the comments section below. Subscribe and turn on daily upload notifications. See you in the next video. Thank you for your support.